Добрий день.
Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody who joins us. Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform continues its operation. It's day 279 of our fight for freedom, and now we will be talking about our fuel market. Joining us online is Serhii, Kuiun, director of A95 Consulting Group. Good afternoon, Mr. Serhii. Good afternoon, Mr. Serhii. With the beginning of the massive strikes inflicted by the occupiers, we understand that there is another market created in our general fuel market. I mean the generators. How did it influence our fuel market in general? Yes, we have to mention that this factor of generators is very significant, and the sales in the retail networks started growing 2 weeks ago. It was pretty unexpected because everybody was preparing for the dead season, and the contracted amounts were based on the last year's tendencies, where we observed that by February the amounts of consumptions decreased, and now we see the sales of gas, for example, growing, which is mostly consumed by private sector, and it's more or less stable. We see growth in this sector, and we cannot connect it with anything other than generators. I cannot tell you about some critical growth, but depending on the network, the growth is like 5 to 15%. Still, it's happening. And besides, we see and that there's, so to say, many speculations about crisis and something like that, but at the same time we've seen that there is a number of factors that impede the supply of new shipments. So they're on the way, but they're delayed to a number of reasons. And the first reason is in delay of tankers in Black Sea due to the storm, due to the low visibility within the last 7 to 10 days. So the tankers were delayed, but they're already on the way, but they were delayed previously. And after the last strike, we see that the operation of the customs was delayed too due to the absence of power supply. Now the power is back on thanks to the generators, but there are still problems with the communication, with the work of the databases where the custom invoices are registered. There are lines at the border, and there is so what we're having is a breakdown in supplies and increase of consumption. And besides, this consumption does not grow gradually. So we see that, for example, there are lines of cars appearing near some gas stations after each strike. But we see that not all of them are equipped with the generators. For example, there is fuel at the gas station, but the gas station doesn't work. So that the people start panicking. They see a line near the gas station, and it's snowballing, so to say. We see that there is a huge panic component, but I think that there are no reasons to panic, because yes, the consumption increases. There is some activization in the market due to the generators consumption, but the transport and the industry, they consume less during this season traditionally, and due to the problems with the power supply, the business activity decreased too. So there is growth in some areas, and still, as our militaries say, the situation is in generally under control. Mr. Serhii, we've seen some gas stations react to this demand last week, and the price for some types of fuel grew like 1 hryvnia or so. Why did this growth happen? Is it reaction to this demand? Well, yes, it's a chain reaction. We see that there is growth of demand and there are delays with the delivery of new shipments. The companies start looking for fuel in the market. They see what's available, what the foreign suppliers have, and those suppliers, it's obviously their business. They see interest on our end, and the prices started going up. And what's surprising, what's untypical, that in the foreign market, the price for oil and fuel product falls. On our end, the price grows because our traders are ready to buy it at higher price, and the owners of fuel tanks, tank trucks, and owners of tankers, they all feel it, and obviously it's a logical market reaction. The retail networks have to react to this, and besides, we've seen this small growth in the beginning was provoked by unbalanced demand. I already gave this example. For example, in Kyiv, you go along the way and there is a gas station of some well-known retail chain, and on the opposite side of the road there is a less known chain, and on one side of the road there is a huge line, and on the other side there is only one car. So if a driver goes, they see that line and they add to it, and still those chains, they did not calculate such a demand. They wanted to tip off that please go to the other side of the road, buy the fuel over there. So this is the factor of unbalancing, and the cost of realization, cost of sales, it grows too. The gas station have to work on generators. The generators are powerful networks that consume 20 liters per hour. So if they work half a day, say 12 hours, it's the expenditure of 240 liters per day, which costs almost like 12,000 hryvnias today, maybe 15,000. So if a gas station sells 15,000 liters per day, it's a very efficient gas station, and the intrinsic cost grows respectively per 1 hryvnia, because 15,000 hryvnias, it's a very big amount of sale, and if it's less, the cost will grow like 1.5 hryvnias. So the cost of realization of products will grow eventually. So what's your forecast for the price growth for some short-term perspective? I don't expect any tragic growth of price. We just have to go through this period, through this gap that we're witnessing now, when the market cannot receive the amount of fuel it was counting on. So these 7 to 10 days, the market will use its reserves. The big chains, they hold to their reserves, and we will go through this period without replenishment of such reserves. And respectively, in these 7 to 10 days, this process of reserves replenishment will renew, when the supply will stabilize from Europe, when the operation of customs will be stabilized. By the way, today we received their comment, and they said that they resumed the normal pace of operations. They still have complications with communication. They are equipped with generators, but each problem makes us stronger. We all learn on the way, so to say, and we see that our customers already became stronger by being equipped with autonomous power supply systems. And I don't exclude any fluctuations of the price just because of the growth of price on the suppliers end from abroad. There will be like some wholesale component, because for somebody who wanted to spend this debt period without reserves, they're looking for some new amounts of fuel now. So I may expect some fluctuations in the amount of 2, maybe 3 hryvnias per liter. But I expect that within these 10 to 7 days, when normal oil product supply will be resumed, we will feel that dynamics which is in place in Europe today. I mean, the decrease of price, we will resume the volumes, resume the amounts, and we will be synchronized with the new price realities. And I'm sure that it will happen. And the prices existing in the world today, they will wait for us. Thank you, Mr. Serhii. Dear friends, do you have any questions?
Sir, Lorenzo Cremonesi from Italia, Corriere della Sera, national daily newspaper. Sorry, sir, you really are somehow at the center of this crisis, especially since the Russian attacked methodically the energy grid, the energy nets. Of course, fuel and generator are at the center of the solution, if there is a solution to this crisis. So first of all, let me understand. First question, you said that on the whole in Ukraine there is enough fuel. First question.
Yes, I think that we have enough fuel in Ukraine now. I'm more concerned with the fact that the retail network, the retail chains, and that they have reserves for 15 to 20 days. And due to the growth of sales, this figure changed to 7 to 8 days. So now they contract some additional amounts to cover this unexpected demand. But I'm talking here about some specific chains, because in other chains we may not witness such growth of demand.
Question, sir. You say that because we have about 6-7 people abroad, but you say that in spite of that, the national consumption of fuel, because of the generator factor, grew between 10-15%. Is that correct? So we assume that this growth is mainly because of generator. Is that correct?
This is not the figure all over the market, but here we're talking about the big gas station chains. They see the growth of consumption from 5 to 15%. It's not I don't think that it's a typical picture for everybody, because we see that in the cities, this situation became more lively, and in the periphery, there is no such demand for fuel. Any more questions?
I have another 2 questions, very practical, because for me it's totally new what you say. You are saying that now the fuel is coming to the country through the sea, through the Black Sea, because I didn't know that the Russians allowed that, and I didn't know that was contemplated in the agreement for wheat. So can you be more specific? How much of the fuel come by sea, by port, by the ships, and by land?
Well, when I'm talking about the sea, I'm talking not about the Ukrainian ports, but I'm talking about the ports of Romania, Bulgaria, Moldova. So those are the ports we are getting fuel through, and then it goes through transit through those countries by land, by railway, and by fuel tank trucks.
Sure. You, of course, if there is no electricity, the gasoline station don't work because they cannot pump the gasoline. So, can you tell us more or less how many gasoline stations are equipped? A percentage, I'm not expecting you to be accurate, but are now equipped with generator to work also when there is no electricity. Thank you.
It's difficult to say. We don't have such statistics because it's not being documented anywhere in any government databases. Just our estimates show that in the big chains, which account for maybe 50–60% of the total sales, they are equipped with generators, maybe 70–80% of them. By the end of the year, they promise to cover all the gas stations with generators. As to the other retail chains, I'm not ready to give you figures, but I see that they mostly don't have generators, but I'm sure they're working on that because it's their business. And we see that for this market, this situation is very good because they have more buyers, and respectively, they have a lot of stimuli to equip their facilities with generators and to try to get a slice of this pie. Dear friends, do you have any more questions? Valentin Marchuk, Ukrinform. I only have one question. You said 7–10 days is the period to stabilize the situation in the fuel market, and within this period we may witness the tendency to the fall of prices. Is that right? Yes, that's absolutely right. We have this problem of 7–10 days because the shipments are being delayed. They cannot go through normally. We will go through this period with the help of our reserves, and then the normal supply will be resumed. And let's not forget that there is a seasonal fall of consumption in Europe too, and respectively it will be easier for us to find the fuel. And again, after the pause between the shipment, the Turkish ports will resume their operations. The Turkish ports will receive the super big tankers from Asia, specifically from India, and that fuel is already being contracted by Ukrainian companies. So we all expect it to arrive, and if everything goes normal, if all the bottlenecks are expanded, I think that by that time we will be able to resume normal operation. We're not talking about any deficit or lack, and with the new shipments we will have all the reasons for prices to fall, especially if it doesn't grow before, because we all expect all those risks existing today. Let's not forget them. The main risk, the main nervosity in the market is the expectation of the Russian sanctions. I will remind you, on the 5th of December, the embargo for Russian fuel, for Russian oil is being implemented. On the 5th of February, the oil products import embargo will come into effect. Europe is very dependable on Russian fuel, on Russian products. It's 40% dependence, specifically in the northern parts of Europe, on Russian diesel. the Baltic ports, which exported Belarusian and Russian fuel. If this source will disappear, it will have to be replaced. And here we're talking about millions of tons. It's about 3 million tons per month, which Europe requires, and will have to be replaced with something else. And since we're buying this fuel from Europe now, we may also feel that problem. We don't feel we don't need the amounts that big, but we will have to enter into competition with the European consumers for these shipments. And unfortunately, we're at the end of this chain. And before us, there is Romania and Bulgaria with their ports, Moldova, no matter how small it is. But just for example, we have Poland Poland, who is a very big consumer, and they are very import dependent. And obviously, they will be trying to provide their consumers respectively. And us, since we're in the very end of this chain, we will have to wait for them to cover their needs, and only then it will be us. There are risks. It is more difficult to find fuel, but for the time being, the old formula keeps working. You pay more, you get what you need. I'm inspired by the fact that Europe decided, Europe solved the issue of independence on the Russian gas, which was coming to Europe for dozens of years, and Russian propaganda was telling that Europe will need 7 years to find replacement for Russian gas, and it's been only 7 months, and Europe already replaced 90% of the gas supplies, of the gas suppliers. And liquefied gas, it's more complicated story. There is a limited number of decompression stations, tankers. And what's diesel fuel? It's a primitive agent transported by the sea for dozens of years. And the main stake now is on Asia, on India, on Arabian states, whose production is huge, but all this replacement, it requires time and effort, and obviously it will cost more. And the closest example is, for example, Baltic countries. A tanker goes 3 days from Primorsk to Rotterdam, and the way from India takes 4 weeks. It's a load on transport infrastructure. More tankers will be needed, and it will be more difficult. Or it's either you pay for the freight of a vessel for 3 days or for 4 weeks. Obviously, it will cost more, but it's not like dozens % of price growth. It's like $100, which translates into 3 hryvnias per liter on our end. For Europe, we will calculate how much it will cost for them. But again, we have to just go through this period. The world and the market is restructuring. It's always a painful process, but it was a deed this year when we rebuilt our market and we replaced 100% of the pre-war supply, not 40%, which Europe is about to do, but 100%. I talk to people in Europe and they don't understand how we managed to do it. Yes, we're having price growth, we have inefficient tank trucks, but for the war period, it's the only thing that can do. The situation is complicated, but we're having fuel. And I don't share this panic forecast that we will have crisis again, because unlike in spring, we have the experience of supplies, we have contacts with the suppliers, we have a fleet of tank trucks which grew thrice since the beginning of the year. We have the railway logistics, even from the most remote regions of Europe, including Belgium, for example. We will bring this fuel. There is no factor of promptness, no novelty in that we're experienced. So yeah, there is a number of unexpected factors, but it's the market. Things like that happened before when, for example, Russians stopped the supply through their diesel pipe. It was a force majeure nobody was ready for, but now it's a different situation, other types of force majeure, but everybody does their job. We have hundreds of suppliers, hundreds of contractors. People are calling to their suppliers in Europe. They're looking for their fuel, and they will make it. I want to detailize about the situation after the 5th of December. How will it influence Ukraine? How we will go through this season, and will we witness any growth of prices? Well, the real nervousness is connected not with the 5th of December, but with the 5th of February, because Europe is very dependent on the import of oil products. As to the oil embargo, if I were told back in January that Europe may implement the embargo for import of Russian oil, I would not have believed it. And nobody could have believed that everything will go in that quiet and calm manner. I haven't heard anybody say that we will not have oil, our industries will stop. Everybody started looking for new sources, for new suppliers. The problems are only, for example, with Russian Lukoil plants in Bulgaria or Italy, who face the problems not with oil, but rather with payments from Russian companies or companies affiliated with them. But all those problems will be solved one way or another. Maybe there will be breakdowns. No one can guarantee that it's new. Something may be lacking. There will be growth of demand for fuel. We will all feel it. But as to my feelings, everybody is ready for the 5th of December. Everybody was preparing to it. I think everything will go fine. Thank you, Mr. Serhii. Dear colleagues, I will remind you, we had Serhii Kuiun join us, the director of A95 Consulting Group. Our team is working on the schedule for tomorrow. Please follow our announcements. Let's trust in our armed forces, and glory to Ukraine.